Hello everybody, it's your boy VG Time back again with another deck profile. This time we're bringing you a promo leader that I've been wanting to bring for a little while, but I only recently got the cards and I'm glad I had that little bit of time with it because I have a lot of insights on this deck and I love it so much. So let's just go over to the leader so you can see exactly who I am talking about. So we were looking at none other than Magenta. Magenta is from the Dragon Ball superhero movie. He's the new leader of the Red Ribbon Army, and he is interesting to say the least. He works with the Villainous mechanic. Now, to explain the Villainous mechanic, it goes like this. There are cards that are printed with Villainous as a skill, and the skill Villainous says that if you play a card that is Villainous or activate a Villainous extra card, your opponent discards a card and you negate the Villainous skill on that card for the turn. So to give you an example, take King Garumes here. Spoiler alert, he's in the deck. He has Villainous. So if you were to play another card with Villainous, let's say Mercenary Tau, it will cause King Garumes' Villainous to happen, and then your opponent discards a card, and then Garumes does not have Villainous anymore. The new card, then if you play another one, will trigger its Villainous to make your opponent discard a card. Now these cards have additional things that make it kind of special, but you kind of get the point. Your goal in the deck is to build up a moderate board of like 2 to 3 cards, and then play guys to make your opponent discard 2 to 3 cards every time you play a guy. So how does he help you do that? Well, there's a couple ways. First, his deck building restriction, which is that all your battle cards have to be Villainous. The second way he does it is by removing their specified cost so that they're easy to cast. And lastly, he has a very easy awakening condition where if you have 2 or more Villainous cards in your energy, you are able to awaken them by drawing 2 cards and taking life down to 4. The reason why that's significant is that on the back side, he has an activate main that allows you to pay 1 to play a Villainous battle card with cost less than or equal to the energy that you have. By doing so, allows you to cheat on energy and again, aggress the board. So even though you're able to spam guys out fairly effectively, you're not doing so with the goal of attacking your opponent per se until you get to a certain point. Your goal is to just develop that board, rip as many cards as you can. Now that we established what he does, let's get into the cards, and then we'll talk about how they all kind of work together. And if you want to follow along, there will be a link to DBS Decks, Deck Planet that is, with the deck list already there so that you guys could just check it out. So, 4 copies of King Garumes. So King Garumes, and you might as well put Mercenary Tau down here, are unique as far as their Villainous goes. Main reason being is that if their Villainous is triggered, their effects are negated for the game. That's fine, because we have ways to recycle these guys. Also, Garumes is an extremely important card in the deck, but that's kind of how they go. To also further nerf them, they are a cantrip and a top 5 searcher. If you get a card from either one of these, you negate this card's skills for the game. So you have to play them and choose not to get advantage off of them in order for you to be able to use their Villainous and so forth. So you kind of have to pick and choose how you want to do it. We have Broly. Broly is there because he's a 2-cost Villainous, and so when you awaken on turn 2, you want to have something that you can play that'll trigger one of your 1-drops. He also has removal built into his kit because when he swings, you get to warp an opponent's battle card cost 3 or less. Let's just get into this engine real quick. So the main way in which I deal damage to my opponent early on in the game is with Beerus. So you start this around turn 3, right? Your opponent usually is going to take their own life to a certain degree in these decks nowadays. And then you would pay 1, play Beerus, and Beerus has Offering. So you're going to probably rip 1 or 2 cards out their hand, and then you have the Offering of Beerus. So most of the time your opponent, at least when they're above 4 life, are going to crit a life. When that happens, you're cool with it. Now, your goal is to loop or recycle this Beerus, or at least have more than one lined up. The way we loop the Beerus is with Janemba. So Janemba allows you to return 2 Villainous cards other than himself to your hand in order for you to play him. On turn 3, for instance, if you had a Broly and some other random card out, you could pay 1, play him, rip a card out their hand, crit them a life because they're not going to let you draw. Then you could probably swing on one of their battle cards or whatnot, get it off the table. Same case with this, or if you have 1 drop out, you have 1 drop out. You then pay 1 to return Beerus and a 1 drop to your hand to play this guy. In which case, or if you already have 1 drops, you can return 2 1 drops to play this guy and trigger the Beerus. But you want to try to return the Beerus to your hand so that you could then use the Beerus again to rip another card and crit another life. Now, if they KO the Beerus, the way that you deal with that is fairly simple. We have Beerus, Destructive Villain. So this allows you to return the Beerus back from the drop area to your hand. So you could then use the leader skill to play it, trigger this, do all that good stuff. So like I said, your opponent will normally allow themselves to be crit down to about 4 life. Some people allow themselves even to get crit down to 3. That's a little dangerous because our win condition is pretty strong. And that win condition is none other than Broly Villainous Threat. So this guy comes down, of course he's Villainous. He minus 25s your opponent's board, and he also gains triple strike for the turn. So as long as you've been doing your due diligence, ripping cards out your opponent's hand, he's going to come down with the 25 triple. If they're at 3 or less life, they're most likely going to die because they won't be able to out-combo him comparative to card. Now that we have the general premise of how the deck is operated, we're now going to go over utility cards. So besides the 1 drops and the leader skill, you have to have other cards that you play for 1 energy that allows you to continue triggering Villainous. Like the Janemba costs 1, but we also have Bojack, who is removal for large battle cards that you combo into play on your turn for 1 energy. We have Turles that says if you have 2 or more Villainous cards, you can, as an activate main/battle, play them from your hand during your turn. And then we have Red Ribbon Robot, which again, if a battle card is removed from your battle area due to a skill in your turn, you can pay 1, play this guy, and again trigger Villainous. He's also good because you are able to sack off leftover Grumes or whatever in order to give him critical, which is also strong when dealing with hand control type strategies. You just swing, you crit them, do what you gotta do. We also run 2 copies of Rudigarn. He is more so there for color. We want to play a little bit heavier of a blue package for a couple reasons, but the main one being our Z-Deck. But he's also not a bad card in general. So he's your hedge against floodgates, and he's also big removal. You play him, he swings, he top stacks a battle card. That might not seem like it's really great removal until you consider things like ultimates being cheaper than ever and Z battle cards being very, very strong. So you swing, you get rid of them, and you got that. Or you can swing, top deck a card that has a high cost to play, and in that sense you are stunting your opponent's draw. He also has the ability to switch himself to rest mode to untap one of your energy at the end of the turn, which is also very powerful, especially if they hit you with like a floodgate or something, and you could just use that ability in order to give yourself more energy. 2 copies of Dr. Whittle. This card got added to the deck as well because of how good it is against unisons. So as mentioned, the leader could play this guy down for 1 energy on turn 2. So if you go in second, your opponent established a unison and ticked it up to 3. You could pay 1, play this guy down, rip 2 markers off of it, swing at it with your leader, get rid of it. If you're going against a deck that has like a big unison, you could play this guy out, rip 2 markers, use Janemba to bounce it up, and then use leader skill to play it again and rip 2 more markers. and that should be good enough to be able to rip out most unisons. Lucifer is our super combo. We play it because it's searchable, also it's Villainous. So as mentioned earlier, Garumas is one of the most important cards in the deck, and the reason being is because they put a lot of effort into making sure that there was not an easy way to play a battle card on the opponent's turn with Villainous. Now, there is one exception to that. That's this boy right here, Frieza. We do not run Frieza because Frieza is too limiting on his ability to be played on your opponent's turn. He requires you to have only one card with Villainous as a trait in order for him to be played. And usually, again, your goal is to build up some type of board so he just never gets played and you don't get a chance to trigger Villainous on your opponent's turn. We also talked about how even though Turles is an activate battle, he can only be done during your turn. Even though Bojack is a combo into play, he can only be done during your turn. So the only way to trigger Villainous on your opponent's turn with any kind of reliability is by using King Garumas with the next card, Playtime's Over. Playtime's Over is a negate that plays a black battle card with a cost of 1 with its skills negated. But Villainous does not care about the skill Villainous for the other cards, it cares about the trait Villainous. So Garumas still has the trait Villainous. When you negate and you play Garumas, it triggers all your Villainous guys. 3 copies to support the Dark Empire. A lot of times, even though our deck is relatively cheap, we're still using mostly every turn all of our energy. So having the ability to have a token negate is really, really strong. And then last but not least, SS4 the Vermilion Sands, which is the best negate / ultimate for the deck. If you don't know what it does, it's a counterattack that says warp opponent battle cards on their side of the field, ignoring barrier up to the amount of colors between your energy, their energy, your battle area, and their battle area. So now in this deck, you're almost going to always hit 5 because of how that works. And if your opponent happens to fill in the gap in the color, you do that. Now on top of that, for each battle card that is warped, your leader gets +5. So you could on average be going from 20 to 40k on your leader size, which then could end the game right there. Not end the game, but end the turn. And then that comes back to you and you just keep doing your Villainous ways. So that is the main deck. So next we're going to get into the Z deck and discuss what I have currently and why it's there. So we're back with the Z deck. It's actually not all that filled because I have not quite gotten all the cards I wanted for it. But we're going to start off with the themed card, which is Gamma 2. So Gamma 2 is actually really, really strong for a couple of reasons. So the first thing is that it comes down for 1. Automatically makes it pretty decent. He doesn't have a specified cost as long as you have a Villainous battle card. He could use an excess Villainous battle card when he's played to give himself 10k and double strike. So you kind of use him as a quick overwhelm in the deck per se, right? Now the other reason why it's good is that when you are trying to go for game, or if you are even playing in the mirror, you could sack one of your Villainous guys, remove him from the game, and then when your opponent activates Villainous, or if they activate a counter skill for the turn, you get to draw a card. So it's in a way, it's sort of like a max C if you play Yu-Gi-Oh! You do this, your opponent has to either give you the cards, or they have to hard combo out of attacks, which is something that they're not going to be able to do if you have been doing your due diligence on their hand. So we played 2 copies of this card because, again, very good. We run heavy blue for 2 reasons. First is Cell. So Cell comes down to help clean up wide board states, clear up the board state, and then attack for crit, which is, again, very good to have when you're playing a hand control deck, to not give your opponents any cards. If they choose to negate or combo out of it, that's in and of itself hand control, so I'm fine with that. And then we have 1 copy of Beerus. So Beerus, again, if we charge 4 blue, gives us barrier removal, which is something that we didn't have in the deck before. So that's what I have so far for the Z deck. I'm also looking forward to the new Majibu card from the Dash Pack as soon as somebody gets them. And then, yeah, that's about it. So the deck is very budget friendly while being extremely powerful. And I hope that you give it a try. So that is it for this week's video. I'll catch you around next time, where I'll be showing you another deck and maybe even some gameplay of this deck. VG Time signing out.